All righty. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Athletes as Coaches as fall webinar. My name is Jordan Schubert, Special Olympics Pennsylvania's manager of athlete leadership and young athletes. Been working here for nearly 10 years and have been an athlete in Special Olympics for nearly twice as long. And some fun uh, facts about me. Yeah, I own a Tesla, and in case you're wondering, saying that's the name of my cat. So now I'm gonna hand it over to my colleague Jen Trust to introduce herself.
Okay. My name is Jennifer Tress. Please feel free to call me Jen. I've been with Special Olympics for 28 years. And a little fun fact is that when I was in high school, I went to clown college and learned how to throw a pie and put my white face makeup on in less than 10 minutes. Did you know
That's
that,
aw-
Jordan?
that's awesome. Thanks, Jen.
We should probably make that an event.
Putting your makeup on?
Yes.
I don't know if I could do it anymore, but I could do it back then.
And so that kind of leads into that's a good lead in, Jen, actually, to why we have this training. We have athletes that similarly, as they age or their interests change, may want to transition into a coaching role. Also, the purpose of this training is designed to answer any frequently asked questions that athletes and volunteers may have about athletes serving in coaching capacities. Additionally, everybody that's on will have an opportunity to ask additional questions as it relates to athletes as coaches that are not presented. So the goal of this training, so right now we don't have any athletes. We have volunteers there. So the main purpose here is generally to help athletes that aren't already coaches help decide if it's for them. Uh, or serve as a refresher to any athlete that already is a coach, as well as helping other coaches like we have on now to better understand which athletes may be appropriate to be coaches. As so, there's a few purposes as behind this. But the main thing, of course, is about athletes understanding that are additional opportunities and what that means for them to serve as a coach. Moving on to the next slide. So just some, I promise that I'll be real quick with the most boring part of the presentation, and that's just expectations. I know we don't use Zoom as often as we did during the pandemic, but just as a common courtesy to others, please have yourself muted when not speaking. We'll certainly pause after each question to allow for questions and comments. And if for whatever reason we can't address them on the spot, I have a spreadsheet up on another computer that I'll be writing them down, and then we'll revisit at the end. For those, if you if you're not able to or not comfortable speaking while during the presentation, you can enter your questions or comments in the chat box. Let me just give me a moment to say this is the chat box, so that way you can and add in anything that you want and at any time, regardless of who's speaking. So right now, this last bullet is irrelevant since looks like we don't have any athletes. So generally, when we do, we want to give them a priority, but certainly this is open to everybody. Everyone will have a chance to ask questions and tonight. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jen to get us started.
All right. And first off, let's say hi to Misty and Ann Margaret, who joined us. Thanks for joining. All right, so the athlete has coach request form. So if an athlete is interested in becoming a coach and they think they would really like to do this, there is a request form. Jordan, do you want to click on it and we'll take a quick look at it?
Sure.
Okay, so this is the form. As you can see, it's very simple. It asks for your basic information, and then it asks what sport you'd like to coach in, how many years you played this sport, and why do you want to be an athlete as coach. And then we do ask for some references, and we do ask for the head coach, okay, so that we can contact the head coach. It's right there. Jordan just highlighted it in blue. Okay, and then you'll see that there's some steps right below it, and then you'll complete this form, and you'll submit it to either your head coach, and then your head coach will kind of give it that okay, and then move it up to the regional sport director or field director, depending who is helping out with the program. The head coach, we feel, knows the athlete best and would be able to say yay or nay to the athlete who wants to be the coach. So then after the form gets passed up, you'll be contacted to be interviewed by the regional staff or the field director. It's just a couple of questions. So, but be prepared to tell about yourself, a little bit about yourself, why you want to be part of the athlete as coach. Okay. And then there will be some questions that will talk about how you respond to different incidents. So you might want to think about some kind of incidents you think that you've seen during your time with Special Olympics, or some that you can dream up and come up with some answers so that you are prepared. And it never hurts to talk to somebody else, another coach, to get some type of incidents or some questions that you might want to ask. Then once you're approved, you'll then be scheduled to go to a training school. After you go to the training school, you'll do what's called practicum hours. And practicum hours is 10 hours that you are at trainings, that you are working with other athletes. Okay. And once you are done with your 10 hours in your chosen sport, you will then be certified. Okay. So Jordan, do you want to take us back to the presentation?
Yep.
So the question is, does the athlete have to go to a training school in order to become certified? And of course, the answer is yes. Okay. We would like that all athletes go to training schools if they want to be a coach. Okay. And then they will need to do their practicum. Again, remember, practicum is working with other athletes as well as other coaches. Okay. And then every 3 years, just like any certified coach, continuing education will need to be taken. Okay. And we have a list of those items that are continuing ed and how to take them. Okay. This one has a whole lot of writing on it, doesn't it? Okay. What does an athlete need to do if he or she wants to attend a SOPA training school? So if you want to attend a training school and you want to become a certified coach, then you will need, well, we kind of just did this whole slide already. Okay. So again, you fill out your form, you get approval, you get up to the point where you're good to go, and then with the training school, if you want to attend, Jordan, I'm correct here in saying that you have to have your head coach or somebody or a mentor or somebody sign you up for the course.
Correct. Since athletes don't have the ability to do that through our online portal on their own. So that's another important thing. And there's a few new things bolded below that we added from last time. So that's those are the main things, Jen, and certainly I'll let you get to that. I just wanted to point that out too.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, because it's really important that, like any other coach, athletes as coaches can only attend a training school as young as 14 years old. Okay. Any coach can do that. But again, like any other coach, you cannot be a head coach or an assistant coach until you are 16. So to be 16, you can be an assistant coach and attend one-day events And then once you turn 18, you can attend overnight events. Okay. And the reason for that is overnight events, if you are attending as a coach, that could include some Class A material information. So right now, again, it's 14 to take a training school, 16 to attend a one-day event as a coach, and 18 to attend as an event as a coach on an overnight event. Okay. And also, if you are a volunteer or regional staff, please note that you should not be changing athletes' person type field in visas. Okay. They shouldn't be changing from athlete to volunteer. They should always remain as an athlete. And then in the additional person type field, we're going to mark them as a volunteer. Okay. This way we know that they were an athlete, and some sports they might be a volunteer, because remember, an athlete doesn't have to be a coach in every single sport they do. Okay. So athletes should not be filling out the volunteer application a second time. We stay with the same profile. We just leave it as athlete and add secondary volunteer. Okay. Jordan, we got to make a note on that question. We got to fix that.
Right.
All right, let's go on to question number 3. Okay, what are the overall responsibilities of an athlete as coach? As you can see, we have a lot of them listed here. Okay, and again, we talk about the 10 hours of practicum, working with other athletes, following the general guidelines, okay, which include the guidelines for the code of conduct. Follow instructions of the head coach. Okay, the head coach is the main big one at the event, at the trainings, at competition, and your job is to listen and to follow and do what the head coach assigns you to do. So carry out those instructions with athletes during training and competition. Demonstrate good sportsmanship. Remember, the athletes will look up to you. So always demonstrate good sportsmanship to all the other athletes, coaches, as well as the officials. Pay attention to the athletes you are responsible for at all times. Ensure the safety of them. Make sure you know where they are and what they're doing. Make sure you give and you take praise and constructive criticism where appropriate, and assist with setup and cleanup. Okay, just because practice ends for the athletes doesn't mean it ends for the coaches. Okay? So make sure, again, duties assigned by the head coach, you're helping out. Okay, so we have a question on what is the difference between competing and coaching. Athletes who serve as coaches may compete in one sport as a coach, but they may compete in a different sport as an athlete. Okay? So this one is telling us that athletes cannot compete in the same sport as they are coaching. So if Jordan is going to be a coach for basketball, it means he can't play. Okay. He must stick it out for the rest of the season once he makes that decision.
Yeah, that was my question. If once the athlete becomes an assistant coach, can they still compete in a sport, not necessarily the same sport they're coaching, but so John Mitchell does bocce and bowling. So if he wants to be a coach for bowling, so he can't compete as a bowler, but he can still compete on bocce.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Correct.
That was my big question.
Yep. So at the beginning of the season, let's say he did powerlifting and bocce.
Right.
Okay. At the beginning of the season, he would need to decide if he's going to be a coach for which one and which one he's going to be an athlete for.
Right.
And if he's going to coach for both of them, he needs to make a decision which one he'd want to go to a state event with.
Right. Now, shouldn't he decide that before the season starts?
We would
Not necessarily a couple of weeks in or anything like that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we would want him to make that decision as soon as possible.
Okay.
Yeah, so John, it would be just like for anybody that participates in multiple sports as an athlete through the season,
Right.
that they want to declare ahead of time what sport they want to attend sectionals and state at ahead at the start of the season.
Okay. All right. That's what I wanted to make sure. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because the last thing we'd want them to do is be practicing with the basketball team and then all of a sudden say, oh no, I'm
Right.
going to coach half,
Right.
and now the basketball team is down a player.
Right. Right.
So we do
Okay.
want them to make a decision as quickly as possible when the season begins. And I think pretty many of our athletes know what that decision is going to be.
Right. Oh gosh, yeah, you're right.
Okay. And at the end of the season, if he says, you know what, coaching was not for me, I got to go back and
Right.
play. Because that's what Jordan would do. I can't coach
Right.
this basketball, man. I got to play. And then he may go back to playing.
Right.
Okay?
And then just
But
one
once
other question. I'm sorry. So let's say, an athlete becomes an assistant coach. Do they still have to do the same training the volunteers do, like the concussion training, the behavioral training, code of conduct training? I'm trying to remember the trainings I did.
concussion, protective behavior, and
Protective
general
behavior. Thank you. That's what it was. Yes.
Jordan.
Yes, so that's actually something we'll be covering in an
Okay.
upcoming slide.
All right. I'll be quiet. Thanks. The stuff just pops in my head as I go along. Sorry.
That's question number 9.
Oh, okay. Thank you. All right. But this was the big one that I had. Because I was told if they become an assistant coach, they couldn't play any sports. And I'm like, really? So this is
No,
perfect. Thank you.
sure. Okay, so let's move on to question number 5. Can an athlete as coach play with other athletes during training or competition? So the answer is yes and no. Okay. So yes, they can do it if the head coach says, Jordan, I want you to demonstrate this shot, then Jordan can do it. Okay. But if it's competition, it's a no. And just like we discussed, you can't have multiple roles, and this would be a multiple role. So no, for competition you can't, but in training, if they're demonstrating and the coach says it's okay, it's okay. Question 6. Are athletes as coaches permitted to chaperone other athletes? And the answer is no. Okay. Athletes as coaches cannot assume a chaperone role. As a result, athlete coaches do not need background clearances. Okay. So they are in what we call part of the 4-to-2 ratio, 4 athletes to 2 coaches, which is question number 7. So they do not take on, go back to that one quick, Jordan. Okay. We expect that they are chaperoning themselves, because if they can be a coach, we expect that they can manage themselves independently, just like any other coach. So we will not have them in the 4 ratio. Okay, so
Right.
it's definitely those 4 athletes who need the chaperone, and then they can be part of the 2 ratio for the 4-to-2.
Okay.
Gosh, I hope that made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Question 8. We're almost at question 9.
Okay.
For athletes as coaches, required to have an application for participation, and the answer is yes. Okay, athletes as coaches are required to have an application, and they should have it on file and then renew it every 3 years. Sorry, just the same way as we would any other athlete. Because if they decide to go back to being an athlete, we want to ensure that that medical is on file, and we also need to make sure that they are medically sound for coaching.
Yep.
Question number 9, here it is. Do athletes as coaches need to complete general orientation, protective behaviors, and concussion training? So prior to attending a coach's training school, athletes as coaches will be expected to do the general orientation. And remember that you only have to do that one time. Protective behavior, have to take every 3 years, and concussion training, and it's good for every 3 years in their online portal profile. Okay. So if an athlete and they're like, what is an online portal profile? Simply work with them or get them to Visa's Help, and Visa's Help will take care of any assistance they need But please, as a coach, if you can help them, it probably is better for you to physically show them what to do.
Okay. That works. Thank you.
Yep.
And then for anybody that's watching this recording, is it okay if I quickly explain what these trainings are for anyone that may not know? So general orientation, obviously that's good for life. That's just the basic overview of what Special Olympics is about. Protective behaviors, that's a training on how to respond in certain situations. And then concussion, that's pretty straightforward, or on how to respond to any athlete that's showing concussion-like symptoms.
And please note that these trainings, the majority of them are read and answer a question.
Mm-hmm.
So if your athlete has difficulty reading, they may need assistance through those. So how does the SOPA housing policy affect athletes as coaches? So
Ooh.
athletes as coach, they may be housed with other athletes according to the SOPA policy, but they cannot be housed with those who are in the same sport that they're coaching. Okay, this may, authority conflicts when they're not on the court or on the field. So we do try to keep them in housing with other athletes, but not ones that they are overseeing. If the HOD does not believe this is appropriate, they will explore other alternatives, and then you'll see these below. So when housing with other sports athletes, when it's not an option, they will be permitted to be housed with another Class A volunteer coach, and again, with written consent. Okay, you know how important this is, that if an athlete who is not related to someone is going to be in with a Class A volunteer, we need that consent that the athlete's parent or guardian or the athlete as an adult understands that they're being housed with someone who is not another athlete in the same age category with them. Okay. So these notes are always shared with the regional executive director. So if you are housing athletes and you are putting an athlete as coach in with another coach, make sure you have all the right permission slips taken care of and submit them to the regional executive director. And this has to be done before you come to the event. Cannot be done at the event, but it has to be done before the event. Okay. Question 11. How much does it cost for a local program to send an athlete as coach to state competition? And the athlete is nothing. And the answer is nothing. Okay. So they are in the role of a certified coach. We never charge for a certified coach. So they are just considered like we don't charge for a coach or they will not be charged as an athlete, as a coach, or additional delegate, or any of those type of things. Those one-on-ones, the young athlete chaperones, we're not going to charge you for an athlete as a coach. We're thrilled that they're taking a bigger step and a bigger responsibility in their sports career, and we are not going to charge you to bring them in the 4-to-2 ratio. Okay. All right, Jordan. I think this one.
Yep. Thank you, and great job. So a lot of the questions deal with stuff that Jen does on a daily basis. That's why we agreed it would make sense for her to talk through those slides. For these last couple, we agreed it would be beneficial for me to explain, especially to our athletes that may have the experience or may be may relate to these situations. So, question 12 is. Are athletes as coaches permitted to serve as athlete representatives, goal messengers, or health and fitness coordinators, which are the three main athlete leadership positions? So the answer is yes. Under the condition that they compete in at least one sport or outside the one that they're coaching. And that's why we wanted to emphasize earlier that in order to that just because you coach one sport doesn't mean you can't compete in another. Or we want our athletes to have choices as in whatever they decide to do. And one of the things that we want to think about too is when we call someone an athlete leader, we're calling them that because they're an athlete. I'm using myself as an example. I used to play guitar, but I don't think anyone would call me a musician. And and I don't even think I consider myself a musician when I did play guitar. And I don't know if that was the best example, but hopefully this gives you a good idea. So, what happens though if an athlete decides, for health or other reasons, that they want to fully transition into a volunteer role? So, we're not going to boost them to the curb right away, but it's also important that local programs identify new athlete leaders within a year to allow the athletes that are participating as athletes the opportunity to serve in one of the leadership capacities that we offer. Now, going back to the athlete as coach that has fully transitioned as a volunteer, they are certainly welcome to pursue other volunteer roles outside of coaching. And that's also for any athletes that, if coaching is not for them, but they still want to be involved, there are certainly plenty of other volunteer roles that we would welcome them to be a part of. And then the last question, lucky number 13, is how are athletes as coaches impacted by the SOPA dating policy? So athletes as coaches may date other athletes provided that there is no conflict of authority, meaning that they're not at the same training site between the athlete as coach and their significant other. Just like what we talked about with housing, we don't want to put anyone in an uncomfortable position and overseeing someone and that they have the personal relationship. So I'm not going to go into too much more detail on this, but if anyone that does have any questions regarding athletes as coaches and SOPA's dating policy, so generally they would be reviewed and addressed by SOPA's VP of Mission Integration, which is my supervisor, Chelsea. So for those that don't know, she recently gave birth to a baby girl. So if anyone has any questions about the dating policy, I'll connect you with her supervisor, Nate Garland, and he'll be happy to answer that. So Jen did a lot of talking. I did a little bit of talking, but now this is where we want to open it up to the rest of you about anything we talked about and anything that we didn't talk about either. So we have 27 minutes. We could use as much or as little of that time as we'd like. So to everybody, the floor is yours.
You brought up the dating policy. I keep forgetting sometimes that my athletes are adults and they can date. But that's a good point too. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, we're really excited about athletes taking on a bigger role, being
Definitely.
able to help teach their peers. We've been having some really good success with it. Last year we had our first athlete as coach at sports camp, and he did a fabulous job with the athletes. And he was so proud of himself because he didn't play until the coach said, I need you to go in and do, the head coach said, I need you to go in and do this for me. And then he went in, and he was just very proud that he was able to control himself and not play.
That's
Another
amazing.
big deal for him was a lot of the players, his buddies who were on the team, he was really kind of concerned about like what to say if they wanted to mess around and not pay attention to the coach.
Right.
So it was a great conversation to have with them. Your buddies are going to want you to participate. Just remind them that you're a coach now, and you as well as they should be paying attention to the coach so they know what they're to do. and he did a fabulous job. So I believe that all of our athletes can be real successful if they want to be a coach.
Definitely. Oh, that's great. And he didn't have any issues, not palling around with his friends when it was time to be a coach.
No, he was really
Okay,
responsible.
that's great.
I was very impressed because he was where he was supposed to be at all times. And I told him if he had questions to find me, and whenever he saw me, he would say, "I don't have any questions," or "I've got a question." So
Right.
he did really well. I was very proud of him.
Great.
Matter of fact, now I have three of them, three
Oh,
athletes as coaches coming to camp this year.
oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Now, I guess the question is, will we like profile them on the social media page just to kind of maybe let the ones who might be nervous about approaching this program, like, oh, hey, look, this athlete can do it, I can do it.
Maybe we could do a spotlight on an athlete as coach. Jordan, you're writing that down, I think.
Yep.
I see him turn his head I saw this lightning bolt go across his head and he's turning. Yeah, we'll add that to a list. That's a wonderful idea.
Yeah. Because again, my attitude is like, who else can coach the athletes better than the athletes themselves? Because
That's
they
right.
go through what they're going through. Um, yeah, that's always been my motto.
I don't know if any of you know, we actually had um, a young lady who went through athlete. She started out as an athlete, then she became a coach, then she became an official for her sport, and then she traveled internationally to all the world games being an official. She just retired last
Wow,
year.
that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I have a
Yeah.
question.
Yes, Pebbles.
If, if Brandy, okay, this is not just for Brandy. Do they have to play any amount of time in the coach to coach a sport? I'm sorry, I had a very long day.
No.
Coach sport of their choice.
So what you're saying is, did they have to? Is there a time limit, like 4 or 5 years or something, before they
Right.
become a coach?
Correct.
Okay. Um, Jordan, I don't think we have anything written, but my opinion would be that if they know the sport and they've played it and they've demonstrated that they know the sport, I would believe that the coach would be the best one to tell us if they think they're appropriate to be an assistant coach or not.
Okay.
Ada, 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 and that's why we're doing a more thorough vetting process than we have
Right.
in the past because Jen's told me stories, and I've kind of seen this from afar that athletes as coaches is mainly signed up just because they didn't feel like putting it in the work and just wanted to hang around, be cool, and just not I'd have to run around and then we want athletes as coaches that to be provide the same quality training and competition experience like any of our other coaches as do. And That's where, to Jen's point, it's important that coaches are involved in the why we have the recommendation form, why we have the interview with the regional sport director, and then once the training school is completed, that's why we have the 10 hours of practicum just to show that this individual is committed and they are willing to, a good fit to serving in this role as a certified coach.
And it's a good time at that point after those 10 hours, to sit down and say, if you think there's some issues, you know, um, to talk with the athlete to make sure that this is really what they want to do, and then make a plan on how to work with them to become a better coach if you're having issues.
Right. No, definitely. Right.
Any other questions? Any other thoughts?
Going once, going twice. Speak now or forever hold your peace. And sold to the highest bidder.
I appreciate this. Yeah, the couple questions I had You answered it, so I'm good on my side.
Yay.
All righty.
Um,
So thank you, everybody, for your time this evening. And I'll send out this recording tomorrow morning as well. So if you want to share this with any athletes or volunteers that
mhm.
weren't able to join tonight, and then if they have any questions or you have any questions, and ask that you email me first, and I'll try to answer them and the best of my ability. And then I if I don't know or aren't sure, then I'll pull in Jen or another staff member to help verify. But a lot of this stuff, the questions we think are those are the ones that we think that the athletes and volunteers will most likely have. That's why we focus on those. But certainly, if you think of anything else, feel free to reach out to me anytime.
Perfect. Well, thank you
Thank
again.
you.
Thank you.
All right, have a good night.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jordan. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.